speaker, Lady Maat Adele. She has been patiently waiting, Lady Maat. We know you got a fantastic presentation. We were all present, not all of us, but many of us was present to hear the sisters teach at the embassy of Ethiopia. And Lady Adele was there teaching us.
Go to battle with her husband. She actually fought alongside him as well. And that's not unusual.
Get ready for the keynote speaker, Lady Adele. And she was given literally a standing ovation by the time she finished. Come on. Come on. So brothers and sisters, Lady Maat Adele is with us live. You know she's got a crack squad. She's got her own following on the Hidden Truth program. Lady Adele, how are you, my queen?
Brother Andrew, family, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. It's glad to be back. I'm really glad that I'm here this week, being International Women's Day, or as we're celebrating, International Women's Month. So it's really good. And I do want to just say something and pick up the sisters that have already been on the platform today, Brother Andrew, before I start. So to our sister who's the doula, I just remembered when I was due to have my first child and I was pregnant, I went to the doctors for the first time. You know, they do all that check with you. And my mother came with me, and my mother's quite a feisty woman and she's quite outspoken. And she was not happy with what the doctors were saying about this and that. And she publicly announced in the whole surgery that women in Africa give birth naturally. And there is no way that anything other than natural birth and a natural process was going to be involved with guarding myself. And I didn't really understand what she was talking about at that time. But I've since found out, and today the sister really made it really clear. It's something I wish I'd known about at that time. So I'll be encouraging my daughter. She's on the platform. I know today that really is the way to go. And I like the fact that the birth of the child starts from the moment of conception, not when the baby is born into this world. And that has to be really recognized. And I was just saying to my daughter today, you know, you've given birth from the time that child is in your womb, and it starts from there. So I'm really looking forward to more of our sisters going down that route. So thank you very much, sister. And just to say to Sister Cheryl, now I'm in the education system, and I tell you there's a great conflict of interest, because I have to agree that the system is about the destruction and obstruction of our young people in particular. And it's we really have a system that we're fighting there. And for me, the system is about schooling. It's not the education, it's about schooling. And at a later time, Brother Andrew, I hope I can share my work on schooling with the Hidden Truth family. But Sister Cheryl's absolutely right. All the educationists on our platform probably see it, or if not feel it. And so that war on education is ongoing. And to Sister Keisha, that should be an affirmation that all our young girls learn.
Oh, must learn. My daughter's learning it.
Learn that by memory. And if they're saying that every day, looking in the mirror on their way to school, when they face challenges in the school place, they will know they don't stand alone and that they are a mighty force. And the presentation that I'm going to do now will really draw on all of that. So thank you very much to all the sisters that have been on the platform today. So family, I'm going to share with you the presentation I did at the Ethiopian Embassy on Saturday. It is about the power of the Black woman that we already have within us. And if we can just overcome the fear, we can see the great things that we can do. So I'm going to say, men beware today. This really is one for the sisters. So Brother Andrew, I'm going to share my screen now.
It's all yours, my queen. It's all yours.
And then we will get started. Let's have a look at this.
Brothers and sisters, please get ready. Get your notebooks and pen ready. Lady Maat Adele is with us today, and she's going into a queen and an empress.
Okay. So family, I've called this one a queen and an empress. And in case you're wondering, I doubt you are, but that is the Ethiopian flag behind us. And I wanted to focus on a particular queen and empress of the Ethiopian Empire. I had never known about the force and the power of the warrior women of Ethiopia. So it was great learning for me, and it's something I want to share with you all today. Oops, let me have a look if I can get it. Okay, and this is the Empress here. This is Empress Taitu Betul, and some in the audience may know of her already. And of course, the starting place for all things for me when I look at a person is the name, some little historical fact about the name and the roots of that. And as I was looking up, I found out that the name Taitu means the sun or sunshine. And in the palace where Taitu Betul lived, it was said that it was whispered amongst the women that the sun dissipates the fog. And it was because she was such a powerful empress, the third wife of Menelik II, that they said that she shone out over and above the other women at the palace of that time. And I went on to find out a description. When you describe names, when we look for names for our children, we always want a definition and a meaning behind it. And I came across this. And the description says that women with the name of Taitu tend to be competent, practical. They tend to obtain great power and wealth. They tend to be successful in business and commercial affairs. They're able to achieve material dreams. And they focus strongly on business and achievement at their own expense of their life and their relationships. And as we learn about Taitu today, we will see how that she lives out the definition of that name, to the point where it made me wonder, did the definition of the description of the name Taitu actually come from the life of this great woman? So just a little bit of history. Just a reminder, we know that during a decade or so before the Great War of Adwa, which is the Ethiopian war that Empress Taitu had a leading part in, that a decade before this, the European powers had already decided the fate of Africa. And we know the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 was all about dividing up Africa amongst the European nations. But little did they know that the attempts to take ownership of Ethiopia was going to fail. But at the time, they didn't know that. And so we're going to look at the role Taitu had in this. So the Empress herself, she was not just an empress, she was a sister, she was a politician, she was a tactician, she was a counselor, she was a confidant, of course, to the emperor, she was a commander, and she was a warrior. And like I said, she was the third wife of Menelik II. And like all empress and royal women, she fought alongside her husband. Historians describe her as intelligent, as astute, as self-assured, and as a leader. And the Europeans, historians define her as Queen Taitu has a reputation of being a woman of much ability, and it is generally understood that the king owes much of his success to her counsel. And as we move on through this presentation, we will see how much Menelik really needed the counsel of Taitu. So as I was saying, Empress Taitu was not the first woman to go to war alongside her husband. Ethiopian royal women have a history of this that goes back many generations. They would bear arms, they would lead troops, and they would fight in their own right. And I just want to have a quick look of some of the great women who did this in Ethiopia. So one of the leading women of times past is the Empress or Queen Mother Eleni, also known as Queen Zyla. She was an empress when she got married to the Emperor Zara Yakub, and that was a diplomatic move to try and harmonize the relationships between Muslims and Christians within the country, so that of Ethiopia. So that was a diplomatic arrangement. And she ruled as empress, but when the emperor had died, she remained as the queen mother, and she was advisor to 3 emperors altogether. And it's described in historical texts that she had all the great men in her hands. She had great wisdom, she had sound political judgment, and she had knowledge of the wider world, which is quite an important thing when you think that Europeans thought they were masters of the world. She demonstrated her military strategic strategy when she recognized that the Ottomans were descending down and were coming to invade into Ethiopia. Now, she knew that she had to keep peace within Ethiopia between the Muslims and the Christians, but yet she had to address the Ottoman Empire, who were kind of descending onto her borders. So what she did in order to maintain peace at home, but yet keep the Ottomans at bay, is that she contacted the Portuguese, and she turned to the Portuguese to say, can we make a military alliance? And in this military alliance, because she recognized that the Portuguese had strength at sea, and if they could hold back the Ottomans at the sea, then they were less likely to invade Ethiopia or to be weaker in the invasion of Ethiopia. So she used this military strategy to keep peace at home and to keep the Ottomans away from the door. However, she died before the Portuguese responded, and at her death, it was said that since she had died, all of them had died, great and small, and that while she lived, all lived and were defended and protected. And she was the father and mother of all. And what I like about that statement is that she was the father and mother of all, because we think of fathers of the warriors and the fighters, and the mothers as the carers, but they put her in the father position ahead of the mother position, which showed her strength as a military and political leader at that time. In her life as well, she also wrote books. She wrote books on the law of God and also on the Trinity and the purity of the Virgin Mary, because we know Ethiopia was a very Christian, an Orthodox Christian nation. And she was also very educated, because she was involved in the translation of Greek and Arabic texts. Another empress of Ethiopia in the early 15 to mid 1500s was Sebelwangul. Now, she's said to have been Jewish, and she was also married into the House of Solomon to Lebna Dengal, the emperor there, for another diplomatic marriage to continue to maintain the peace between the different factions within Ethiopia. And she was also a political and military leader, and she took on where Empress Eleni left off. So by now, when the Portuguese had come over, she negotiated a joint military operation with them. And she had her own royal court of 200 in her escort. She had 30 women on horses, and she went into battle with the Portuguese against the Ottomans. The first battle was lost. And what she then had to do, and it was the Portuguese lost on that first battle, but what she did with the remaining Portuguese is that she rallied them together, and she worked with the Portuguese to go into battle again. And on that second battle, they overthrew the Ottomans, ending 12 years of Turkish dominance within that region. So she showed that even without her husband or an emperor behind her, that she could drive the military force and work with the Europeans in order to maintain the safety and the nationality and sovereignty of the Ethiopians. She went on to negotiate the release of her son, who was in captivity, and she reigned for 2 decades during the reign of her son and her grandson. So she was another military force within Ethiopia. Now, coming up closer to the reign of Empress Taitu, who's my main focus today, we have Intege Mentwab. Now, Intege just means the empress of a current emperor. And Mentwab, in the early 1700s, she was married to Emperor Bakofa, and she was a major political figure during the reign of her son and her grandson. In fact, she was crowned co-ruler and had unprecedented power over the government of Ethiopia. She was loyal to the Virgin Mary, and you can see her here. The picture on the left shows her loyalty to the Virgin Mary as she's laying at her feet. And on the right, you can see her co-rulership. She's sitting level with her son, who is on the left of her, and they're facing each other. She built castles, she built churches, which shows her powerful influence over government and religion. And so she managed really the empire under her sons and her grandson. And the last Ntege I want to talk about before we come back to Taitu is Ntege Menem, and she is in the early to mid 1800s. She fought the Egyptians in the border regions, and she led an army of 20,000 men into the Battle of Aishal against rebels within the area. She lost that battle, but I still had to mention her because she led 20,000, a troop of 20,000. That's a huge military force. How she got into this position as empress is that her son was a guardian to Emperor Johannes III, who was a weak emperor, and she could see the falling of Ethiopia into other hands, into enemy hands, into European hands, and she decided she was going to marry Emperor Johannes III because she knew she had the skills and the power to restore Ethiopia and to keep it at the great levels where it needed to be. So she is, although she may have lost that battle, she was influential in keeping Ethiopia in the hands of the Ethiopians and the Christian Ethiopians in particular. So just to say, the historians wrote about the women warriors of Ethiopia by saying there can be no doubt that the women of the upper classes of the country, because it was usually royal women, are more cleverer than the men and therefore capable of a very high state of civilization. And we always talk about the Black woman as the queen and mother of civilizations. And here the Europeans are saying it themselves, that these women will play a most important part in the politics of the country and that they will make themselves listened to by the men. Now, this is a power that we have within us. And as we go through, we will see it's not just the women warriors of Ethiopia where this message is coming through. We have warrior women across the whole of Africa and the diaspora as well. And we need to, sisters, listen to how we are being spoken of so that we can claim that back for ourselves. Now you can see Taitu there on the left. She was the last empress to lead an army into war. And that is why I think it was the greatest battle of Ethiopia, and it was the greatest position to be in and to be recognized as the last empress to ever do that. So Empress Taitu, before she even got to the War of Adwa, which the Ethiopians celebrate every year at the start of March, which kind of coincides with International Women's Day, this empress, she was getting experience long before that battle. And from the age of 30, she was having powerful influence on the government and politics and war at that time. So what would happen, of course, Menelik II, Ethiopia is a big region, he would go out onto campaigns, and when he was out on his campaigns, he would leave Taitu in charge of political and local government and management, often with different dukes, which they called Ras at that time, and to make sure the peace was kept. And on one of these occasions, when Menelik went off to a campaign, he delegated Empress Taitu and Ras Gobena to keep order in a region called Shoa. And this image here just is what a village area in Shoa today. But the soldiers who were maintaining order in Shoa, thinking that they had heard rocket fire in the locality, decided they were so afraid of this that they were going to desert and leave their post. But when Empress Taitu heard this, this is what she said: "If all these soldiers have come to guard me, I congratulate them. But if they tend to run away, their heads are mine, and their belongings will go to those who capture them." And this shows that she knew she had to be firm and to be hard in order to maintain the order, because if one group deserts, then this could spiral out of control. And she was being given the responsibility to maintain particular areas in her husband's absence. There was a second occasion where a similar action took place. This time her brother, Ras Wala, who was a governor of the Yeju region, he had gone off to campaign with her husband, Menelik II. But what had happened, the then mayor of Zegu, who was left behind to look after Yeju, Zegeye, he decided he wanted to usurp and take over Yeju in Ras Wala's absence. And when Taitu heard about this, she had a two-pronged approach. Prong one, she sent out soldiers to capture him. And prong two, she sent a message out to the people of Jeju. And listen to what she said, her words that have been written down. Men of my country, it is to prevent suffering that I have come here. Since the time of Gugsa, and Gugsa is her ancestral people, until today we have had no quarrel with you. Take care that no dissension explodes between me and you. As for Sigeye, if I should hear that you permitted him to enter and govern Jeju, or even if I learn you allowed him to drink water in Jeju from his cupped hand, we will become, you and I, mortal enemies. And
what the backside? What the backside?
I said, brothers, be afraid. Brothers, be afraid, because this, sisters, is in our blood. So we just need to find it and have that power released once again, because we can make great change and great difference. And this is the message that Empress Taitu sent out to the men and the people of Zayu. And what did they do? They sent a message straight out to Zegeye, is do not march here. And so we can see that she could avert challenge and she could maintain peace. She these two examples demonstrated the level of respect, reverence, and fear that the people had for Taitu. It also shows her administrative capacity and her ability to pacify a rebellion. And through these types of actions, she was key in gradually bringing all the tribal groups in Ethiopia under one banner. And this is critical to the Battle of Adwa that allowed Ethiopia to remain as an independent country when no other African nation outside of Liberia was able to do that. So over to the Wuchale Treaty of the 2nd of May 1889. So this is quite interesting. This comes just before the Battle of Adwa. And what had happened is, you can see in the yellow region, that before 1889, that the Italians had now occupied Eritrea and occupied Somalia. And they wanted to extend themselves into Ethiopia because they wanted to secure that trade route. They wanted to be seen as a significant, powerful force along with the British, the French, and the Belgium. And what had happened, Menelik II wanted to encourage the Italians not to occupy Ethiopia. So what he agreed to do was to agree to a treaty as well as giving over some land to the Italians. And for this, he wanted the assurance, and he was given the assurance that Ethiopia would retain its independence and would, when necessary, be able to acquire financial and military assistance. So this was Menelik's approach to securing the independence of Ethiopia. And the treaty itself has 20 articles. Now, if you can imagine this, we've got the Amharic-speaking people and we have the Italian-speaking people. So the treaty itself had to be translated into 2 languages. And as you can imagine, such a translation into 2 very different language styles would lead to minor translation differences. Now, that was not an issue until we come to Article 17. So I'm just going to show you Article 17 in the Amharic. And it says here, His Majesty, the King of Kings of Ethiopia, can use the government of His Majesty, the King of Italy, for all treatments that did business with other powers or governments. And what that's ultimately saying is that the King of Ethiopia can use the input and support of the King of Italy when doing or conducting foreign relations with other nations. So in the Article 17, Menelik II was happy with that. But look what happens when it got translated into Italian. His Majesty, the King of Kings of Ethiopia, will use the government of His Majesty, the King of Italy, for all treatments that did business with other powers or governments. And that mistranslation, which the Italians said was a mistranslation, it was accidental, now makes Ethiopia a protectorate of the Italians. And so the treaty was signed without a thorough recognition of this this era, and it wasn't until the October of 1889, so remember it was signed off in May, the October of 1899, when the Italians are now telling the rest of Europe that Ethiopia has become one of its protectorates, that Menelik stands up to say, I reject this protection. I no longer agree to this Wuchale Treaty, and it's called the Wuchale Treaty because it was signed in that particular area of Ethiopia. And Menelik II renounces the treaty because between himself and the King of Ethiopia, it could not be resolved. But my question is what is Taitu, Empress Taitu's role within this? Because remember, the treaty has been signed and only challenged in the October. Well, what we do know is that Taitu, the Empress Taitu, was among the first to recognize Italy's intention to overthrow Ethiopia. And she becomes fully involved in the diplomatic affairs. She didn't trust the Italians. She didn't want their proposal of friendship. She didn't want to share the trade routes with them, and she certainly didn't want to give up any charity. And she was an opponent, an ardent opponent of the colonial ambitions. And she even instructed Menelik to expel the Italians once they started to reach the borderlands. She said to them, you need to move these people out. We cannot let them enter any further. And she was so angry, we could say, with the signing of the treaty, especially when it came out that this translator had now made Ethiopia a protectorate and the Europeans were now accepting it, that she said to Menelik, in her words, King John, referring to Prester John, who we know is a myth and a legend, but we're not going to go into him. King John never wanted to cede an inch of territory. He fought against the Italians and the Egyptians for this principle. He died for this, and you, after such an example, wish to sell your country? Who will want to write your history? She was not afraid of Menelik II, or as the women worked and fought alongside their men, she didn't need to worry about having those difficult conversations. And this is the word that she spoke to her husband. And these are the words that in my mind really got Menelik II to see what was happening, to open his eyes to what was taking place in front of him. And the good thing is he had the power of such a strong black empress behind him, whereas in Europe, queens and royal women were sitting at home with their lap dogs, hence why they were bred, and not getting involved in political affairs, not bringing that women's warrior spirit that they may have had within them. They didn't get that support and advice. And Menelik II and all Ethiopian emperors had the privilege and honor of having their women able to speak that way. So let's look at the Battle of Adwa itself. So the war didn't start on the 1st of March 1896. It actually started earlier in around the October 1895, and it just culminated in the Battle of Adwa in 1896. And you will notice those mathematicians in the room, but this is 7 years on from when the treaty was originally signed. Yes, it took time and continuous negotiation and words of war before action took place. And it was the Italians who decided a military solution was the only way to force the Ethiopians into accepting the treaty that they had signed, that the Ethiopians had signed. And although they were a bit hesitant, an Italian brigadier by the name of da Bormidi, he stated, come on, Italians, Italy would prefer the loss of 2,000 or 3,000 men to a dishonorable retreat. Now look at that there, willing collateral damage of his own people in order to overthrow the Ethiopians. And in those words, little did he know that he would lose more of his men than even that. Here is Adwa there. You can see that little red dot there. Now, what is interesting about Adwa itself, it is close to that Eritrean border, so easy for the Italians to come in and to get out. But what is significant about Adwa, it is flat land, great land for battle, but it's also the ancient Ethiopia, it's the site of the ancient Ethiopian Empire. And that empire dated back to 980 to 400 BC. So that was a very important site. And was it important in that the Ethiopians knew that they had the force of their history and their people behind them? Or was it a site where the Ethiopians would be at fear because they knew it was land that was holy land and needed great protection? But regardless, that was where the battle was going to take place. Now look at this. Look at the arrogance of the Italians. The Ethiopians, remember, as I said, Taitu was critical in bringing all the Ethiopian tribal groups together. The Ethiopians went into battle with 80,000 rifles, 20,000 spears and swords, 8,600 horsemen, 42 Russian artillery weapons, and 7 commanders. They were not losing their land. The Italians, I would have to say in arrogance, came with 15,000 men, 56 mountain guns and rifles, and 6 commanders. And with that, they were expecting to beat the Ethiopian force. Now, whether they thought the Ethiopians couldn't pull themselves together, whether they didn't know the Ethiopians had such a wealth of weaponry, or whether or not they didn't think the Italians had the skill and strategy of war, I can't say at this point. But history has shown us that the Ethiopians knew all about war. It was within their blood. And how could the Ethiopians have brought together such a military force? Well, I've already said that they had a history of women and men fighting alongside. War was a part of their lifestyle. It was nothing to be feared. It was a part of everyday life. And they had brought the troops, all the people together. And one of their historians, an Ethiopian historians in a war previously, had already said, all sons of Ethiopia, bear in mind that Ethiopia is primarily your mother, secondly, your crown, thirdly, your wife, fourthly, your child, and fifthly, your grave. Hence, when you march, you must realize that you will be defending your country, which corresponds to the love of a mother, the glory of a crown, which is the kindness of a wife, the joy of a child, and the charity of a grave. The reasons for men willing to sacrifice their lives for their mother, their wife, and their child. So this is just a way of thinking of the Ethiopians at their time. They didn't need to think twice. So Empress Taitu herself led her own force, and she's led a force of 6,000 men and women. This was her military fighting force. She had 3,000 of those rifles. She had 600 horse people, and she had 4 guns. And with that, she also had an entourage of 20 to 30,000 women. And these could have been slaves, royal women, concubines from the other military men that were fighting. And she organized these 20 to 30,000 women into what were called service units. And they were all headed up by a captain. And all of these women had spears, shields, and swords, so they could be ready to fight at any given time. And she left the capital ahead of this mighty force in the October of 1885, marching up to 10 to 12 miles a day to get to the region of Adwa. So she was a military power. And she was also a military strategist, and we find this written in history. And there's a quote that says, at the time of battle, she advanced with artillery in front of her and the riflemen to the left and to the right. When the men in front were attacked by cannon fire, she assembled her forces in a fortified position and ordered them to return the fire from a distance. And to prevent the front line from being weakened, she returned those who were bringing the prisoners with the military soldiers who were at the back or at the rear, and brought them to the front. And the women who were not fighting on the battlefield were expected to prepare food and drink, they carried on their backs all the goods, or the munitions, or the food, all of those things. They cleared roads, they dug ditches, they built fortifications, and they protected property and munitions, and they protected the captives, and they protected the animals, and they would even go and gather intelligence or act as spies on a part of that journey. And one of the deciding factors that really started to weaken the Italians is when she took from her fighting force 900 men, it is said, to cut off the water supply in Mekelle, where the Italians had, a branch of the Italian military had fortified themselves. They cut off the water supply, and within 10 days of suffering, they had to surrender. Now, if you can imagine being out in the heat, 30, 40 degrees with no water, you could see how the pain and suffering those Italians would have had to have undergone, and would have had to surrender. So she knew how to sidestep and make alternative plans to meet the needs of battle at that time. So she went into battle, and what the women did as well, those who were and those who were not fighting, they would go out and they would sing what they were called the battle songs. And it is said that the Empress removed her veil and under a black umbrella advanced on foot, as did other royal women, and seeing some soldiers hesitated, cried to them with all their strength, "Courage, victory is ours." And this they would do out on the battlefield while the men are at war themselves. And the women on the backs would carry the dead, would carry the wounded, and would and take them back away off the battlefield. She had no intention of giving up until the battle was won, until the war was won. There was no plan B. She didn't need to think about plan B. And these are her words itself. Yield nothing, because what you give away today will be a future ladder against your fortress, and tomorrow the Italians will come up into your domains. If you must lose lands, lose them at least with your strong right arms. And these quotes are things we should carry with us today as we go into the battlefield of daily life. So she also, the battle was won that day, and she also said, don't ever think that we are not willing to sacrifice our comfort and die for our country. Giving one's life for the country is an honorable death. She had decided, as I said, that the war was going to be hers. They had everything to lose. And I'm not talking about just their life and about their homes. The things that Taitu were concerned that the Ethiopians would lose if they lost their battle was that they would lose their history, that they would lose their spirituality, that they would lose their culture, they would lose their self, and they would lose their mind. Things more important than their life, things more important than their homes, because this would be generational and could not be under her watch. She was not going to be the empress that would lose the nation to anyone else. And so the day of victory was not just an Ethiopian day victory, but it was a victory for all African people around the world. It turned Ethiopia into an international symbol of redemption and freedom for Black people. And the Honourable Marcus Garvey and the Honourable Bob Marley, they drew inspiration from this victory, which connected Black people within Africa and around the world with their ancient glory and the future hope that is within the people. The Honourable Marcus Garvey, as you can see, said there, we see a new Ethiopia, a new Africa, stretching her hands of influence throughout the world, teaching man the way of life and peace, the way to God. And we may look at Ethiopia and say Ethiopia is a nation which is suffering right now, but it has within its lifeblood the energy to come through that, because it was never colonized, it was never imperialized, and so within it, it has the fighting force to come through once again. And we can see that the nations of Africa really looked to the success of Ethiopia. And once a lot of the nations gained their own independence in later years, that many of them adopted the red, yellow, or red, gold, and green flag of Ethiopia as a part of their own liberation. And we can see some of them there. So it's International Women's Day, International Women's Month. And I just wanted to close by looking at some of the great warriors that we have within Africa and around the world here. And you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 images there. So in the chat room, it'd be really good if you could list down the ones that you recognize. Just going to give everybody a moment or so, just list down who you recognize from here. I know, Brother Andrew, and later on in the month, I'm hoping to do a session to close Black History Month, looking at some of these warrior empresses and queens across Africa and what they mean for us today. So just in the chat room, sisters and brothers, can you name any of these great people before I do that? So just let me know, Brother Andrew, if anybody is calling, writing down any of who they are.
Yes, yes, yes. Sister Samira or Jarita, could you read out some of the names?
Oh, am I on? Yes.
There's a whole lot of people answering, Lady Adele.
I was just about to say, so we've got Queen Nzinga.
Yep, she's there.
We also have, oh gosh, forgive my pronunciation, Dahomey warriors.
Yeah, Dahomey Amazon warriors. Yeah, we've got them there. Yeah.
We also have Nanny of Naroon, Queen Makeda.
Yeah, Nanny of the Maroons, Makeda of Sheba. Yeah.
Yep. And we also have, oh, sorry, it's going so quickly. Asatwa as well.
Yeah, Santwa. Yeah, she's there. There's 2 missing.
And that's a repeat. That's a repeat. Ya Asantwa. No, I've already said that.
Yeah.
That's a repeat. That's a repeat. Queen Amina.
Queen Amina, lovely. There's 1 missing.
Okay, let me see if I've missed any, because there were, someone is saying Queen Nanny. We've mentioned Nanny there. I'm getting repeats. Let's see if I've missed anybody who has said Queen Afaro.
No.
Is a name.
She's not here.
Okay. And
1 more, Sister Samir, give me 1 more new one, and then I'll let everyone know.
It's so funny. Everyone has put pretty much the same names. I'm going back through the chat. Someone has said here Isis.
Oh, I can see why they said Isis. It's not Isis.
Nefertiti.
Not Nefertiti.
I was going to say.
I'm going to move on. So thank you everybody for taking part in that. So let's just have a look at them. Yes, there are the Dahomey Amazon warriors from the kingdom of Dahomey in today's Benin. The next is Ya and Santaway from the Ashanti tribe in Ghana. Then, yes, we do have Queen Nzinga from Angola. Below we have Nanny of the Maroons from Jamaica. And then, yes, there is Queen Amina from Nigeria. Then we've got Makeda, the Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia. And then we've got Queen Nandi of the Zulus. And the last one is Queen Candace of the Kushite Empire, which was in Ethiopia, is now today's Ethiopia. So that is Candace. And so these are some of our warrior queens within Africa and out there in Jamaica. And there's many more. When I was at the Ethiopian embassy, somebody said to me, please look up Queen Solitude from Guadeloupe. So that's a new one for me to investigate for myself. Now, what I would say, sisters, and we know that statistics says that all of us are at least 7 people removed from the Queen of England. So if you track down to people you know, you'll be 7 people removed from actually touching the Queen, so to speak. But I just want to say that I'm declaring today that we are only one person removed from one of these warrior queens for ourselves. So as Black people, women on this planet, we're only one person removed from any one of these great empresses or warriors, because they are within our blood. We come from one part of those worlds, and it's very important that we remember that. Queen Empress Taitu says, "I am a woman. I do not like war, however. I would rather die than accept your deal." And that's the deal of the Italians. And today, sisters, as we celebrate International Women's Day, we must remember that we're not just mothers and sisters and aunts and grandmothers, but we too don't like war. But we must be ready to go into war for our children, and even to go into war for our men, because they're having systems and processes forced upon them, whether that's in the school environment, whether that's in the workplace in forms of institutional racism. It is for us, the highest form of civilization, to take on that battle and to take on that war, because the battle itself is about our mental state of being. It's about our intellect. It is about our history. It's about our economics. It's about us as a cultural group of people, because the war is all about separating us from these things, separating us from our culture, from our history, from our spirit. These things are being warped, are being taken away from us. It is our duty, sisters, that we reclaim, we restore, and we live our inheritance that has been left to us, left behind from us, from these great women here. And so as we leave and as we go through International Women's Day, and as we go throughout the rest of this month, our closing mantra as mothers, as sisters, and as aunts, and as grandmothers is that we are a queen and that we are an empress. And so, family, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time. And I would say, go away and research into some of these great and powerful women. And there are others out there, lesser known, but yet with a powerful impact on groups of women wherever they have been. We are the higher form of civilization. We are the mother. Of planet Earth. This is why we are called, and why the Earth is called Mother Earth. And we must take up. We must run away from the fear and accept who we are born and designed to be. So, Brother Andrew, before you ask me, so what is my message for us as women today? My message is that we remember who we are. These women didn't just remind us of of our history and who we are. They tell us who we are, and we need to go out and find out more so we can claim their power back and start to leak it out or unleash it out or use it in our life from day to day. Brother Andrew, family, Sister Samira, thank you very much.
My God, brothers and sisters, and if you're at home, stand on your feet. You've just been addressed by a general, by an empress, by Maat herself.
Am I able to stand? Am I allowed to stand?
Stand, man, stand. Brother Leon says on his workshops, you're gonna learn something tonight. You're gonna learn something tonight. Brothers and sisters, was that not teaching? Lady Adele, come on, man. Brothers and sisters, someone just said standing ovation. Thank you. Phenomenal. You can't, look, brothers and sisters, I'm going to say this to you, man. If you can find a platform, hear me. If you can find a platform that loves you more and teaches you more than what you get on this Hidden Truth platform for free, I would say go and follow that platform. Go and follow that platform. Because I don't know. I just don't know, brothers and sisters. That was teaching, not preaching, teaching.
So, Brother Andrew,
yes.
As you say, it's teaching, and yes, teaching is my roots. I then have the privilege to be able to hand out homework. Is that right?
Okay.
So I want to challenge all our sisters today, and my challenge is we have got, I can't look at a calendar, Matt, we've got 3 more weeks left in March. My challenge is that we, each week, we go away and find out a little something about one of our warrior queens for our own self. And so that's my homework challenge. And I would say for our kings on the platforms, our emperors on the platform, that they go away and they look up a warrior emperor for themselves, 1 a week in celebration of this month. And so when we end March, we know we have a warrior queen that we're carrying behind us. When things are hard, we know we've got them behind us. So I've suggested some in the presentation and some at the end. The challenge is go and study 1 per week.
Beloved Lady Adele, Sister San says challenge accepted. Brothers and sisters, if you accept that challenge, let us know in the chat room. If you accept that challenge, Lady Dell's giving us homework, but do you accept it? Are you going to challenge yourself to be disciplined enough during this International Women's Month? Let us know. Are you going to accept she's challenged you, man? What are we going to take away from that challenge? Oh, Lady Adele, that was absolute magnificent, sister. You definitely deserve 3 shredded weeks. I'm telling you, man, without a doubt, without a doubt.
I don't know about the 3 shredded weeks, but can I share some comments?
Please, please.
I just wanted to share, and it's lovely to see you, Lady Maat Adele, on International Women's Day. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And also a special welcome to Sister Dr. Elaine, who has written in to say, awesome, genius, inspirational, and transformational.
Wow.
I just wanted to also pay homage there to Sister
Wow.
Dr. Elaine. Love what Sister Monica has also said, which is excellent presentation, Lady Adele, and you have excellent enunciation of the Amharic language. Amharic,
come on,
I should say Amharic language. And Vanessa has also said, with heartfelt gratitude, and there's just thousands of ones that Sister Vanessa has also shared with us there. Sister Patsy has said, just outstanding, Goddess Adele, thank you. The list goes on. I know that Brother Brian has said that he's accepting your challenge with love. So I just thought that I would share that. Sister Helen has said, awesome, Lady Adele. Thank you for the knowledge, love, and light. We've got loads of ones, fire, hand clapping. We also have Sister Keisha, Queen Reflection, saying powerful knowledge, sister, as well.
Thank you, Sister Samira. Thank you, family. And it's this family that makes it all worthwhile.
Isn't it? Isn't it, Adele?
What it is.
Isn't it, sister? Thank you, Sister Samira. Love that. Love that you highlighted some of the powerful comments being made. And brothers and sisters, as I said, this is the hidden truth. We are not just a show. We are a movement now worldwide. And brothers and sisters, I thank all of you, man. Come on, brothers and sisters. Let's just, I want to give a massive shout out to the dedication of the day, my mother and Sister Leah's mother. Brothers and sisters, could you do me a favor as we round off? If you've lost your mother, only those who've lost your mother, and you still love that mother, International Women's Day, can you please put the name of your mother, or if it's your auntie, or if it's your sister, please drop their name in the chat room that we can honor them tonight. As I said, I dedicated it to my mother. Sister Leah has dedicated it to her mother. Please, brothers and sisters, if you'd like to honor your mother, your auntie, your grandmother, whatever it may be, drop her name down, brothers and sisters, because that energy has not gone. Show them that they are alive in you today, and that you've not forgotten them. You have not forgotten them, brothers and sisters. Let's show some love to some of them. We got Maria, we got Kathleen, we got Salome, we got Jeanette, we got Roslyn, we got Carmen, we got Winsome, we got Maisie, We got Girlie, is that Eve? We got Patricia, we got Jima, we got Vienna, we got Agneta, Florence Rose, Dorothy, Emily, Pearl Palmer, we got Mama, we got Olive, we got Auntie, we got Millicent, we got Mary. It goes on. You just keep putting their names down, brothers and sisters. We're honoring them tonight. Brothers and sisters, please show some more love to Lady Adele, my aunt. Let her know that we love her and that the education given to us is absolutely amazing. Please, to the firebrand sister, Sister Cheryl Phoenix, we thank you, sister, all the way in the motherland. And what I love about Cheryl, she ain't gonna nice up things. She ain't gonna nice up things, man. She's gonna give you the raw truth, whether you like it or not. No, nothing in the sky. No tulips in the sky. She's giving us raw truth. Sister Cheryl Phoenix, the most fierest woman I know, man. We thank you, Sister Cheryl Phoenix. Lady Moot, we thank you, my queen. We're gonna do a whole show on this delivery and the doula. We need to understand the power of natural birth, sister. And we know there's a whole range of other things you do. Salute our sister Moot. Salute us. Now, Sister Keisha, Queen Reflection. Oh my God, brothers and sisters, you heard poetry like you've never heard it before. You heard spoken word given to you with passion, with eloquence, with articulation. Make some noise for Queen Reflection, man. She was absolutely amazing. And we know we ain't going nowhere until Chef Kevin feeds us, man. And JJ with the soul. We're going to be bringing the soul back onto the program. But for those of you that are on the Wellness Weekender, I'm telling you, man, you should book just for the soul alone and just for the food. We're going to have a black gala. Can you imagine 150 conscious black people to over 200 of us? We're going to have our own black gala. Are you going to miss that, brothers and sisters? We're near enough sold out now. We're winding down. We're winding down the sales. But don't leave it late. Don't leave it till last minute booking, brothers and sisters. Get it on now. We've got Chef Kevin, who's literally left us mouth watering already. Brothers and sisters, next week, Goddess Month moves on to reclaiming our reproductive power. We've got two of the greatest authorities from America that's going to be joining our show. And we're going to be dealing with not just fibroids and endometriosis, but brothers and sisters, we need to understand the health of the Black woman. We need to, sisters, I'm going to ask you a question. Sisters on the platform, you feel this? We've still got near enough 400 of you on laptops with us right now. Sisters, are you going to take a challenge from Brother Andrew? Are you going to try and get 2 or 3 sisters from yourself to join us next week? Sisters, are you going to talk back to me? Can you challenge? Because you know, sisters, I'm not a Black woman. I'm not a Black woman, but you know, sisters, you know your sisters. This is areas that we have to deal with on Hidden Truth. Can you accept the challenge to make sure you talk to your friends, talk to your aunties, talk to your sisterins, and even the brethrens, and bring them onto the show next week? We have got the world authority with us. Sister Samira, why is this so important next week? You're on mute.
You see, that's what happens when you talk about a subject that I'm passionate about. Can I put a challenge out to our brothers? You see, the thing is that we as Black women, we know that we are gravely affected by fibroids, but there isn't enough knowledge about endometriosis and how it affects us as Black women. And so what we need is for our brothers to be a part of this struggle. So my challenge is, where are the brothers? Because these are challenges that we as women are affected by, but catch this. If we are saying that we're concerned about the Black family, where does the Black family start? It starts in the womb, correct?
Oh,
and
lyrics.
If you are saying to me as a Black woman that you care about our family, our future generations, well, our future generations will die if we don't look after our womb and reproductive power. That is why it's been written like this. So brothers, if you care about us as your queens, you will be there and you will make sure that you bring 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people. So that's my challenge to our brothers. Let me just
your challenges tonight.
Yeah,
Lady Adele's giving you a challenge.
This is real because I know the sisters will come out, but brothers, are you gonna come out for us? That's the challenge.
Come on,
Number 2, I know that endometriosis is something that we don't really know a lot about. Actually, it's a condition that affects mainly white and Asian women, but the reason why it's key for us as Black women is because just like fibroids, it goes unnoticed, and we are at the raw receiving end of getting stage 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the most severe. Just for those who don't understand or know about endometriosis, it's actually where the tissue, I know that we've got Sister Delia on, so she'll be able to talk about this in more detail, but it's where effectively the tissue mimics the uterus